What is up, my ninjas? Shinobi here with another video for you guys. Today's going to be more of a vlog type video, and the reason for that is I've really been doing a lot of thinking lately, and I've been getting a lot of messages from viewers. Thought I would do today is do a story time with Shinobi. And I really got thinking a lot lately because I've received some messages in the past where somebody messaged me and it was like a father or it was like a son or something like that, and they would message me and they say, Shinobi, I want to thank you for your Diablo videos. They really helped me out, and I found the game more enjoyable because I found there was more things to do and all these things. And he said, I'm even actually playing Diablo with my dad now. He wasn't like, he's game illiterate, didn't know anything about gaming, but he watched your videos and he went from knowing nothing about Diablo at all to at least enough so that him and I can play together. And that's pretty awesome. That means a lot to me. That right there is why I do what I do. And, I've always, when I first got into this, I thought, I want to try and make a difference in any way that I can. And that kind of thing is amazing. That blows my mind. Seriously, it blows my mind. So thank you for sending that message in. It was a message from a little while ago, so I don't remember the name of the person. I'm not looking at it right now, but you know who you are. And that meant a lot to me. That meant a lot, definitely. And it got me thinking. Recently, Mother's Day came up, and I took my mom out for Mother's Day, and I also took my dad out too. I wanted to bring both of them. I didn't want him to sit home by himself, and so I treated them both to Mother's Day dinner, and we spent time together, and there's probably some pictures on the screen that you can see some of that, and I posted that on Facebook, and you guys just like spammed that like button like crazy. Like it really surprised me just how much you guys cared about not just the videos that I make, but actually me and my life, like the person behind the camera, the person that, that makes all this stuff and puts this content out and everything like that. So, it meant a lot to me. So I thought what I would do today in this story time with Shinobi, I haven't done a story time with Shinobi in a while, I would talk about a little bit of my background in gaming and where it all started, where it all came from, and everything like that. So let's get into that. So when I was about 4 years old, I was about 4.5, and we were coming up to Christmas, and the Sega Genesis had just come out, and my dad had asked me, "What do you want for Christmas?" And I've never owned a console before. I've never owned any games before. I'm 4.5 years old, and I said, well, I went over to my friend's house, and he has this thing called the Sega Genesis. I would really like that for Christmas. It's very fun. I've played it a couple times, and nowadays in the world that we live in, you have like little kids, literally, that have iPads and like laptops and like PS4s and things like that, and that was a little unheard of back then, to buy such a young kid a console, especially when you have games for the Sega Genesis like Mortal Kombat that was almost banned in a lot of countries because of how bloody it was, and how it was like for a lot of younger kids were playing the game, and a lot of people tried to actually ban that game, and kind of like how Grand Theft Auto is and stuff. They would think that the violence in schools was because of Mortal Kombat and stuff. And so my dad, he said to me, is this something you really, really want? Like, if I get it for you, or if you and your mom get it, your mom and myself, we get it for you, are you going to, utilize it and play it? And, we want to make sure that, is this something you really want to do for a hobby? Is this something that could be enjoyable for you? And I said, yeah, definitely. I definitely do. Like, this is awesome. So anyways, Christmas comes around. Go downstairs for Christmas, and sure enough, Sega Genesis is waiting there for me. Open it up and everything, and it comes with one game. It came with the Sonic the Hedgehog game, and then I was playing that game like crazy, and I walked over to my dad, and I said, "Hey, Dad, hey," and he's like, "Yeah, what's up?" And I said, "I beat it. Are there more games?" And he's like, "Oh, you already?" And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Are there more games?" And he's like, "Well, let's go get some more." So he took me to the store, and we rented a couple games, and he said to me, Luke, which is my real name, he said, I'm gonna make this promise to you. And this is one thing that I've really loved about my dad, is that he never ever breaks promises, ever. And it's just like, he's so much pride behind him, you know? And so he said to me, he said, Luke, you know, I'm gonna make this promise to you. Every time you beat a game, or, you know, every time you complete a game, you know, I'm going to rent more games for you, or I'll buy games for you, like on things like your birthday or Christmas. Not like you're just like instantly gonna keep buying games for me. I usually would only be able to rent games, and then when it was like my birthday or Christmas, then that's the time where I actually get games to, you know, to own. You know, I didn't really have a lot of money growing up or anything like that. So, you know, he made that promise to me, and I definitely made him, you know, stick to his word, because I would play games like crazy. I'd go to his house on the weekends, and it was some of the most enjoyable times of my childhood were going to my dad's house on the weekend, because, you know, they had split up and everything when I was younger, and, you know, going to his house on the weekend, and we'd go to the store and we'd rent some movies and we'd rent some games, and I'd play them all weekend and beat them and just keep going through and playing more games, and it was my hobby, it was my passion, I loved it, you know, and I still do, which is crazy, you know, freaking 23 years later, 23 years later, still at it, man, still at it, it's crazy. And anyways, getting older, more consoles are coming out and everything, and I remember this is one of the strongest memories I ever had in my childhood, is Nintendo 64. Nintendo 64 came out, revolutionizing the way that we see gaming, you know, just it's crazy. So I asked my dad, Dad, I want Nintendo 64 for Christmas. And he goes, ooh, I don't know about that. It just came out, and it's sold out, like, everywhere. And I'm like, oh, well, you promised. And he's like, I did promise. And he's like, I'll see what I can do, okay? And I was like, all right. So Christmas time comes around. He tells me about a week or two before Christmas. He says, he sits down with me and he says, you know, I don't know if I'll be able to get this this game for you. And I said, well, why not? He says, it's sold out everywhere. And I'm like, oh, man. And, like, as a kid, you're like, you promised, you know? But, you know, now that I'm older, I'd be like, okay, it's understanding. Games sell out, blah, 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 blah. But as a kid, I was like, no, you promised. What the hell? I didn't say what the hell. I was like 8, 9 or something. But anyway, so he said, okay, I'm going to try my best. I'll try my best. And anyway, so Christmas time comes, wake up Christmas morning, go out to the Christmas tree, open up some gifts, got a big box there, and open it up, and sure enough, Nintendo 64, and I'm like speechless. I'm like, wow, this is crazy, Nintendo 64. And you think about Nintendo 64, it was like how hard it was to get the Nintendo 64 then when it first came out. People were selling them on eBay for like 3-4 grand, stuff like that. My dad didn't have that kind of money to do that kind of stuff, you know, and nowadays you can buy it for $20 at a garage sale, or you can get it for free in some situations. People just give it away. But then it was such a big deal. And I asked him, I said, how did you get the Nintendo 64? You know, because he got me a couple of games with it too. And he said, well, I called up your aunt, and I went up. She lives in Sudbury, which is about 7-8 hours drive away from us, a little north in Canada there. He said that, you know, she said that the store had one, and she went to the store and picked it up for my dad, so that way they, you know, it didn't sell out or something. So my dad drove up to Sudbury, drove back, you know, got the game, drove back. So total about 15 hours worth of driving. That's how he got it for me, and I still remember that. And, you know, it's awesome, you know, and I'm gonna do the same stuff for my kid, you know. And if I have a kid one day, I'm gonna, you know, support his hobbies, because it's important. I mean, hell, I turned my hobby into a career. This is what I do for a living now, and I wouldn't have been able to do that if it wasn't for him. If it wasn't for him giving me that spark right in the beginning to go after my dreams. So I have to thank him for that. So the other reason why the Nintendo 64 stuck out so much for me is because my dad had never done gaming before. You know, he never would try any of the games that I played, and I was playing Mario 64, and you guys may remember that game. And he's like, I said, Dad, why don't you give it a try? And he says, oh no, I can't do any of that stuff. I can't do any of that stuff. And I said, no, give it. It's not hard. I'll show you how to do it. So I showed him how to do it, and he was running around doing stuff and having a blast. He was having so much fun. It was crazy, and we literally sat there for days and hours and days. And I would come over to his house on the weekend, and he's like, "Hey, you ready to boot up, boot up that Mario game?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And so we'd play it, and like it was something that we shared together, which was something, that reminded me of that situation, of that person that messaged me and said that to me, that my dad found a way to connect with me on my level. And I think that's important when you're raising a kid or something, is to find a way that you can connect with them. Don't pigeonhole them and say, no, you're only going to do this, and be really strict and say you're only going to do that. It's like, no, it's like, what do you want to do? And you let their brains develop, and you let their brains explore and try new things. And that's what he did for me, and we shared that experience together. And even to this day, I swear to you, even to this day, he still talks about that. He still talks about the moments that we played Mario 64 together. It's crazy. It's literally crazy. And and if it wasn't for, like I said, if it wasn't for him and his keeping to his word, like a good dad should, or a good parent should, in general, right? Then I may not even be here. So just something to think about. If you have a kid and they're looking about getting into the gaming or something like that, I mean, obviously don't just let them play any mature games or anything like that. I mean, obviously common sense, but at the same time, let them explore their hobbies. And because of that, I branched off into trading card games after that, and I'd play Pokemon, and I'd collect, and I'd go to tournaments, and I'd win stuff from those tournaments, and that would fuel my collections, and I would just keep going through, because I didn't have the money to enter into tournaments, so I had to win in order to get store credit to play in more tournaments. So I just kept doing that. Eventually got into Magic the Gathering, did the same thing in that, played that for about 13 years. Getting into SOCOM, the competitive FPS game that competitive shooter game that I got into the rank 1 team in the world called Liquid Zero, and and my dad actually bought me the PS2 that game was on. And my dad, the only thing that my dad didn't buy me game-wise, by the time I got old enough, I think SOCOM was the last thing. No, the last thing he bought me was Xbox 360. After that, I've been purchasing my own stuff. I've been working, doing my own stuff since I was like 16 years old. Just doing my own stuff, and I purchased World of Warcraft myself, and we shared a computer for a while, and then I started working, and I bought my own computer, and then I was able to do all kinds of stuff, and it just kind of just sprung from there. I've moved around 10 times plus throughout my life. I've been to at least 8 different schools. I've had so many different friends from all shapes and sizes all over. I've lived in Canada, I've lived in Michigan, I've lived in Georgia, I've lived a lot of different places. I lived in Hamilton, Burlington, a bunch of different cities, but the only constant that was ever there for me was gaming. It was the one thing that made me just kind of disconnect from reality, just kind of throw myself into and enjoy. It means a lot to me. So that's why another answer, that's also answering another question that someone asked me in another video, is like, why do you take this so seriously? It's just gaming, right? But it's my life. It's what I've done since I was 4 years old, and now it's a career. And I want to make sure that if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right, and I want to make sure that the viewers are happy with what it is that I do. So hope you guys did enjoy that story time with Shinobi. If you want some more story times, maybe like the "Where Did I Get My Name From" story, I can maybe do that in another episode, so let me know in the comments down below. If we can hit 500 likes, I will do the story time with Shinobi, where I tell you where I got my name from and the whole story behind that. And so go crazy on that like button, guys. Thank you for subscribing. And like I said, my name is Shinobi, and until next time, thanks for watching.